Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed the video today. We're going to go through our round 24 tips and predictions like we do every week. Unfortunately, round 23 wasn't our best round. 6 out of 8 tips were right, so pretty good overall, but no perfect round that we all been looking for the last how many weeks. I think I've got 6 out of 8 for the last like 3 weeks in a row. The two teams that let me down were the Cowboys and the Rabbitohs, so pretty unfortunate there. If you enjoyed this sort of content, please make sure you like, subscribe down below, and comment down below your tips and predictions for the weekend. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So first game of the weekend, we got the Manly Seagulls versus the Penrith Panthers at Bluebet Stadium. With Manly, 26-16, lost to the Roosters. Definitely wasn't the best game for them overall. I think the Roosters pretty much dominated them through most of the game here. Sean Kepi is back in the lineup in this one, back up into the front row position due to Matt Lodge going down with the ACL rupture. Pretty unfortunate there for Matty Lodge. I thought he's actually been in really good form ever since going to Manly. And Ben Travojevic comes on the edge for Kelma Tuolangi. I think he goes back down to the bench. Pretty interested in this move, obviously, because Joshy Schuster has played a lot of his great football coming from the juniors and all that with Ben Travojevic on his edge. So he'll be fighting, he'll be bringing him on that edge as well. So really, really excited to see that matchup and this matchup against the best team in the competition right now. So moving on to the Penrith Panthers, as we just said before, 26-6, massive win over the Melbourne Storm over the weekend. They were pretty much just dominant throughout the whole game. Fairly unchanged coming into this matchup. There's really not much you really want to touch on with the Panthers. They're just so fucking good. Defensively, they are so strong. They really frustrated the Melbourne Storm like no really other team I've seen really do the way they done. And plus, you just add that together with all the strike they got across the park. Just their sets just look so nice. So, yeah, my tip coming into this game is it's pretty easy coming into this one. I got the Penrith Panthers. I do have this like slight feeling maybe the Manly Seagulls can actually come in here and make this a contest, but you can't go away from Penrith Panthers the way they're playing at the moment. So next game of the weekend, we got the Sharkies versus the Titans at PointsBet Stadium. Starting off with the Sharkies, 26-16 win over the Rabbitohs over the weekend. Really good win for them. Obviously, the Rabbitohs, for me, I thought coming into that contest with Latrell Mitchell, they were going to start firing before coming into the final series and really try to stick into that 8 position. And the Sharkies, the way the trend has been going, they were falling away, especially defensively. They were falling apart. But coming into this game, they were really strong defensively. I think at one point it was, 26-6, pretty early, like late on into the game. And then the Rabbitohs ran home a couple of tries to really make it somewhat of a more decent game to them. But for me, the Sharkies were the more dominant team throughout the whole contest, having Hiroti looking really nice on that wing. But Ronaldo Mulitalo comes back onto that wing position, so they got both their starting wingers back in there. Wade Graham just announcing that he is retiring from football, I think towards the end of the season. So, shout out to Wade Graham, man, just one of the best players that have touched this competition. He is so versatile. He's been everywhere from 5'8" edge back rower. He could play a center role. He could play anywhere. He's been awesome for the Sharkies, the Penrith Panthers, and just so good to see him in the NRL and players like him. So I hope he does all well with his whatever he does after football. And with that, moving on with the Titans, coming off a loss last weekend against my Warriors. I actually went to that game. It was really great to see that game. As I said, if you haven't checked out my Wild Talk video, I go through my thoughts on the game and my thoughts overall when I was there. But coming off 28-18 loss to the Warriors, they were down to 12 men at that point due to the Mo Fotuaika send-off, which was, in my opinion, it didn't really need to be. For me, I thought it was a 10 in the bin suffice. But then again, I actually thought that Chris Randall should have got sent to the bin as well. And then there was like 2 hair pulls in there. There was a whole lot of things that weren't going my way. But if you want my full thoughts on that game, go check out my Wild Talk video as well. I go for a little bit of the Titans as well. And Jaden Campbell was in amazing form in that game. And shout out to Aaron Clark, an ex-Warrior there. I thought he was awesome, especially watching him live. Just some of the movement he does off the ball, the way he gets into defenses, he's really aggressive. I thought he was really good in that game. Obviously, the big news for them is Big Tino is back and Big Mo Fotuaika is off with suspension. So coming into this game, I'm thinking the tips, because it's at PointsBet Stadium and the Sharkies seem to be turning a corner. I'm going to go to the Sharkies. Obviously, the Titans just down Mo Fotuaika, but Big Tino is a massive in. I think the Titans can make this a 1-12 contest, but I'm going the Sharkies in as well. Next game of the weekend, we got the Broncos versus the Parramatta Eels at the Gabba. I'm really interested for this game because I've been to the Gabba game, the first Gabba game this year, Broncos versus the Dolphins, and I thought it was a really good good atmosphere there. So it should be a really good atmosphere there coming out against the Eels. And especially, you know, they smacked the Roosters there last time. So all the Broncos fans will be turning out in numbers. Starting off with the Broncos, 30-14 win over the Cowboys last week. A dominant win, in my opinion. And even when the Cowboys, in my opinion, turned up for that game, they looked awesome across the park. But the Broncos, just so much strike, man. I can't, like, defensively, they did, like, you know, they were awesome defensively in this game and that. But just they're like, you know, they don't hold on to the ball as best as they could. I think they only had like a 70% completion rate in this game or whatever. But just the amount of points in this team is just mental. If like Reece Walsh sticks a couple of passes here and there, this could have been 40-50. Like, it's just mental. And it honestly, when you see the scoreline, you think, oh, obviously the Broncos smashed them. But nah, like the Cowboys turned up in that game and they were down without Jeremiah Nanai and a couple other key pieces. So shout out to the Cowboys in that game. But, you know, the Broncos just, they're a powerhouse in this competition. It's them and the Penrith Panthers. And the Penrith Panthers, for me, are just a little bit above. Everyone's been saying it. So it is what it is. There's nothing new there. Dean Mariner comes into the wing for Jesse Arthurs. And Jordan Ricky returns back off injury. Could come back to the edge back rower role. Really excited to see Jordan Ricky back there. I think everyone forgets how good defensively Jordan Ricky was to start this year as well. So I think that just shores up their defense even more. And moving on to the Parramatta Eels, 26-20 win over the Dragons, where it was pretty controversial both ways. Like, you know, there was a couple of moments that the Dragons did get some rough calls, and obviously the Eels, you know, getting a couple of rough calls as well. But overall, 26-20. I thought the Dragons held up a really good contest in this one. Michaeli Ravalawa just being amazing on that edge. But, you know, with the Eels, they just got so much strike across the park, and Bryce Cartwright, man, fuck, he's turned a complete corner. I remember when he left the Penrith Panthers to the Titans and you start to see the decline of him, and I was like, I don't know if he'll ever play like proper first grade again, especially we went missing for a little part there. And then going back to the Eels seem to be doing this, that they seem to be really good at just turning people, like players, back into their best forms, and that's a really good sign of a good club. So shout out to the Parramatta Eels there. Dejan Arce moves into that centre role. Simonson moves over to the wing. I really like this sort of look because Dejan Arce, Denari Arce, I actually really, really rate, in my opinion. I think he would be a really good centre for them in this game. And then Brendan Hands comes into the bench role. So really excited to see Brendan Hands back into this lineup. I really don't understand why he got dropped out of this team. But, you know, comes back into the bench. I think they should get a really nice rotation through the middle there. My tip for this game, I'm going to go to Broncos. I think they're just going to be way too tough at the Gabba. But, you know, it is what it is. The Parramatta Eels are a good team. They'll turn up on anyone. The next game of the weekend, we've got the Rabbits versus the Dragons at Cairns. So pretty interesting one. This one going to Cairns. But starting off with the Rabbits, 26-16, lost to the Sharkies. The Rabbits have got a little bit of a road trip going here, going from Perth to Cairns in this one. So pretty interesting there. But obviously very disappointing against the Sharkies. Just nothing really clicked for them. I feel sorry for Ty Munro. He definitely didn't have he had some moments that he wished he could forget in that game. But man, his speed is just on a different level. And I feel like his footy smarts is on a really good level as well. There's a couple of times he doesn't push a pass, especially when he makes the break. You know, if I want to compare, like, you know, you got AKP. I love AKP. His speed is just fucking mental. But, you know, he just makes some silly decisions, even though sometimes it does come off. It's like the high risk, high reward sort of stuff, where, you know, obviously he makes the break and he goes for like the kick and chase, the chip and chase. It ends up being like a 30-meter kick that looks like it's going to go dead half the time. And then you got Ty Munro that usually picks his passes and he doesn't really overplay his hand too much when he makes big breaks. So really good to see there. I feel like he's got the potential to do some special things as well. So I feel like, you know, the more time he gets in the NRL, the more confident he'll get. I think he's a really good player for the future. Jai Arrow stays into this team, obviously coming off the back spasms last week. So I actually thought that it didn't look too good, to be honest. I thought he might have been out of this game, but he is still named in this one. And Shaq Mitchell comes into the front row role. Obviously they need players like this because Totola's out. You know, Harm Selle, there's a whole lot of boys in the middle that are all down. Tommy Burgess getting like 3 to 4 weeks for the tackle last week. So yeah, pretty light in the middle in this one. But, you know, I feel like Shaq Mitchell, he does offer a lot, especially in that big front row role. He's a big body, he can move, and hopefully he has a really good game in this one. Moving on to the Dragons, no real big changes coming in this one, but obviously coming off the loss to the Eels, and they actually gave it a really good fight. I want to shout out Billy Burns. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff I've seen out of Billy Burns. He's definitely a player that, you know, whether the Dragons can hold on to someone like that, but I feel like he's got potential to be something really, really nice. And obviously Michaeli Ravalawa just being the dominant winger that we all can see in him. So he does have these sort of games in him. He can be like rocks and diamonds. So whether this one's going to be a rocks game, who knows? But the Dragons always give a good fight to the Rabbitohs usually, other than like I think a couple of years ago in that preseason freaking the charity match sort of game. So my tip for this one, I'm going to go to Rabbits. I think the Rabbits need to bounce back. They have to if they want to stay in this 8 sort of talk. And I think they're just going to be up for this one. Moving on to the next game, we got the Tigers versus my Warriors at Hamilton. And before I go through this game, I do want to shout out to the West Tigers. If you haven't checked out my Wild Talk video, I do touch on that a little bit better, like a little bit more. But I really do want to shout out the Tigers for taking their home game. This could honestly have been another away game for us where we had to travel from the Gold Coast to the Titans home ground, whether it was Leichhardt or it was Campbelltown. But I just want to shout out to you Tigers as a club and the fan base and everything like that. I hope we don't boo you at the stadium. I think there's been a petition or whatever going around for all the Warriors fan base and that to not boo the Tigers when they come out and actually cheer for them when they do come out, because, you know, so many teams could have made this decision, and it just sucks that the NRL couldn't really, push this along or anything like that. But just shout out to the Tigers. It's amazing stuff. I thank you so much for what you do for our team, especially, all the things that we did give up. With the Tigers, obviously 22-18 loss to the Raiders, where again, a couple of really bad decisions in this game overall. Obviously we'll talk, the forward pass from Jackie White, which was just mental how that just didn't get picked up. But obviously, a really good game from the Tigers overall. I thought Lukey Brooks was really, really good in that game. I think like, players like, Junior Dupo, he looks really, really strong in contact. A couple of other key pieces. Norfoluma looked really good in that game as well. Unfortunately, Charlie Staines, I think, is out of this game as well. But Stefano Otikamanu and Sean Bloor come back from concussions, so definitely bolsters up their forward pack even more. Twal in there as well. So really, really good to see all those boys back coming into the Warriors game. And moving on to the Warriors, 28-18 over the Titans. Again, if you haven't checked out my Wild Talk video, I'm going to keep saying it, this and that, but go check it out. I'll give you a little bit more of what I thought on this game. But I thought, overall, it was a very rusty performance coming off the bye. We could have done a lot more, and to be honest, I think we missed about a good 3 to 4 big opportunities in this game. Luke Metcalf chip and chase when he broke the line, and he chipped over the top of Campbell, whoever was fullback at that time, and it bounced the wrong way, bounced straight back over his head. Dylan Walker throwing the forward pass, Dallin Watsinisi-Lesniak scoring a try that ended up being pulled back for the obstruction. A couple of other big key moments in this game that we did miss. We could have pushed this all the way out, but that's the sort of thing. We still won this game being rusty, and I'm really proud of that, even though the Titans went down to 12 men. But to be honest, we went down to 12 around that sort of time as well. So it still is a massive thing, but, it is what it is. I don't think it's been blown out as what it should have been. But Tane Tuapiki keeps up that fullback role due to Chance being knocked out, of course. Hopefully, Tane really stakes his claim into this fullback role, because he's going to be our fullback for the future. He's got amazing talent. Reminds me a lot of a young Jaden Campbell. I think Jaden Campbell has a little bit more strings to his bow, obviously with his passing game and all that sort of stuff. But when you see the running game side by side, very, very similar. And I've really loved, his tackle break form. I think I saw a stat the other day. If you combine his New South Wales Cup games and his NRL games this year, he has 83 tackle breaks or something like that. So pretty mental there for Tane. He's been amazing for us. My tip for this one, you already know, it's going to be the Warriors. I'm not going to sway either way, but yeah, go the Warriors, and thank you so much, Tigers. Moving on to the third last game of the weekend, we got the Roosters versus the Dolphins at Allianz. Obviously, with the Roosters, 26-16 win over Manly, which they were absolutely dominant in that game. I thought they really clicked into gear. But that seems to be what the Roosters season is like at the moment, where they have one of these sort of games where it's like, can you jump on the Roosters bandwagon again? But then they fall apart again. It just is what it is. But Josh Wong, Siwa Wong, stays on that edge back roll. He had a really good game last week, in my opinion. And Dylan Napa comes back off back into this team, and he's coming off the bench. Really good to see Dylan Napa back in the lineup and back in NRL. I thought, obviously back in the day, he was just a heavy hitter, a really exciting player to watch, mainly in defense. Really good defensive player. Moving on with the Dolphins, 30-28 loss to the Knights. The Hammer keeps a center role. Obviously in that game, last game, I thought, Jermaine Osako had a fucking amazing game. Really tried to hold the Dolphins into this one. But as soon as the Knights, obviously they had a sin bin there that ended up swaying the game. The Dolphins ran a couple of tries in during that sin bin time. And, I feel like the Dolphins, they hold into a contest. They do this really well, but the Knights just being way too strong in the end and just having so much strike across the park really didn't help. But, I thought the Dolphins, obviously they keeping the fights, and I think they make their fan base proud every time they go out there, and they're going to definitely build for the future to be a very, very strong team for the future. My tip for this game, obviously, I'm going to go to Roosters. I feel like the Roosters, after last week, I think I hope they're going to take another step, but the Roosters, they just burn me every week. So we'll have to see how this tip goes, but yeah, it is what it is. Second last game of the weekend, we got the Melbourne Storm versus the Raiders at Amy Park. Starting off the Melbourne Storm, 26-6, lost to the Penrith Panthers, where they pretty much got dominated across the park. Unfortunately, they did not have Jerome Hughes and Xavier Coates in that game. Jerome Hughes has been named to return in this one. Tom Eisenhuth starts on that right edge back row role, which really does confuse me when you got Eli Katoa and even you got Big Nelson there. But, you know, Eli Katoa, I feel like he's your starting edge back rower, but, you know, it is what it is. I can't really question Craig Bellamy at the moment. You know, he's just one of the greatest coaches of all time. So it is what it is. I think he's got a plan for that. And moving on with the Raiders, 22-18 win over the Tigers, where they got very, very lucky in that game. The Raiders just seem to be that team that just don't win by a shitload of points. I think their biggest winning margin was like 10 or something. I think I've heard across the grapevine or whatever. It's pretty crazy that they are going through stuff like that. But with Ethan Strange coming in to make his debut in this game in the center role because of Sebastian Kris obviously doing his hamstring, and there's a lot of talk that he's going to be out for the season or whatever, or for, you know, till they make the finals and that. Ethan Strange got a whole lot of potential coming up through. Watched him in I think it was the under-19s Blues. I'm pretty sure under-19s, under-20s. It was one of those ones. The Blues and Maroons game, and he's a very, very strong little backline player. Really, really good to see him move up into the NRL grade in this one, and he's got a whole lot of potential, so really excited to see how Ethan Strange goes out there. My tip for this game, I'm going to go to Melbourne Storm, even though usually these games are very, very tough to go by because the Raiders usually give it to the Melbourne Storm. But the Melbourne Storm, just Amy Park, it is what it is. Like that, I feel like they're just going to be way too strong in this one, especially. I don't see them dropping back-to-back games. Craig Bellamy teams don't usually do that too much. And last game of the weekend, we got the Newcastle Knights versus the Doggies at McDonald Jones Stadium. With the Newcastle Knights, they are in form at the moment. 30-28 win over the Dolphins, where, as I said before, I think the strike across the park really got them home in this one, especially, you know, when they went down to 12 at one point with Lockie Fitzgibbon getting done with the hip drop, which he didn't get suspended for him. I'm pretty sure he got named into the lineup here, so really doesn't make sense there. But Anaro Tuala comes into the center role for Braden Best, that left side center next to Greggy Marju and that. I really like Anaro Tuala. I think he's going to do a great job there, especially. I don't think they lose too much. Obviously, Braden Best is a great center, but, you know, I think Anaro Tuala will fill in and do a great job in that spot. And with the Doggies, 23-22 win over the Dolphins a couple of weeks back. Obviously, they had the bye last week, but Luke Thompson returns to the bench for the Doggies in this one, and really, really excited to see Luke Thompson go around for a good run there. You know, he's been an amazing front rower coming from England. He hasn't had that much of an opportunity for the Doggies. When I've ever seen him play, he usually does amazing stuff for the middle, really high work rate. Just one of those English boys that just get into the mud of things. So really, really excited for this game. I'm going to go with the Knights. Obviously, the Knights, you know, they dusted the Doggies pretty early on. I think that was not too far long ago where they beat them by 66-0 or whatever it was. So, yeah, I'm going to go to Knights again, but obviously, the Doggies are a stronger outfit now. Obviously, Viliami Kikau, Luke Thompson comes back to the team, all that sort of stuff. So I feel like this could be a 1-12 game, but, you know, the Newcastle Knights, they're in some sort of form at the moment. So yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Please make sure you like, subscribe if you really do enjoy, and comment down below your thoughts over the weekend. Thank you so much for all your time, and thank you so much for all your support, guys. Appreciate every single one of you guys. Peace out.